How do I get better at marketing? How do I see the growth of my marketing for the people that I'm reaching? It's, am I effectively making them feel close to me? If you can't change it geographically, you can do it relationally. How can you make your messaging, make your content focus not at actually turning them into a buyer, but just on making them feel close and connected? Was at an event last week, and I heard one of my favorite Instagrammers was speaking. It was Codie Sanchez, and she was teaching us all how we could buy a business right there in the room. And she had what she calls her Venmo challenge, this Venmo challenge. But what stood out to me is the power of proximity. And so in marketing, there's kind of like a fallacy. I think we sometimes think of it of like a line to cross. And I think of it more when you're conceiving your marketing and how you're doing your engagement there of a circle to draw. So let me give you an illustration. So Codie's example was, hey, the best businesses that you could buy right now are probably ones that you paid with Venmo. She said, check out your Venmo account, look and see inside of your Venmo and see, who did you send money to? Who do you regularly send money to? These are small little businesses. Might be your house cleaner. This could be your hairdresser. This could be folks like that. They're taking Venmo as a payment. So there's a closeness. You can get to the owner. The owner is there. And there's a possibility that you could buy these seller finance or like no cash down or exchange of equity just in exchange for your marketing knowledge and your know-how and your ability to grow the business. Because a lot of business operators are like, I just do my craft. And if I didn't have to worry about growing or bringing in new customers, that'd be phenomenal for me. That's the value add skill of marketing, right? But the premise to all of this is you are uniquely advantaged by proximity. So I get the question all the time with people who are starting off in a business and they're like, who do I serve? Right? I could sell, I got this widget. I could sell my widget to whoever. Who should I serve it? And, a key thing of marketing, if marketing is connecting to other people that might want to buy your product or service, it's like, who am I connecting to? Who am I serving? And you hear the phrases like the riches are in the niches and that sort of stuff. And it all comes around to like, who? Who is your audience? Who are you serving? Who is your customer? And proximity is just an unfair advantage. And so what I mean by proximity is just like closeness. It's just how close you are. And this can be multidimensional. So you can look at it geographically and you can also look at it relationally. That geographic, literally how close you are to them. Like, can you do business with them at Starbucks? And then relationally, like, is there an aspect to where they trust you or they know you or there's a foot in the door that other folks aren't going to be able to have just because it is who you know, right? Like you have some degree of a relationship with them and that's going to put you in a position to make an offer or to solve a problem where other folks won't even have the opportunity to do this. And so if you think about this in like your marketing play, like what are we trying to do in marketing? I think of it in the far outreaches. I'm trying to bring folks in the direction of proximity, bring them closer in. You can't always do this geographically, but like relationally, how do you build that a relationship? And so like that line or that phrase of, we don't think of it as like, it's a line that's across, it's a circle that we draw. And so it's like the wider the circle that we can draw to include as many people and get them moving closer to you. When you start to think of it in that perspective, it becomes clear what activities I would do. This is like I relate a lot of marketing campaigns to like human relationships or romantic relationships, because you would do a different thing. You plan differently if it's like, oh, it's a first date versus it's a marriage proposal. Those are different depths of intentionality, different degrees of commitment. And the same is true, so the same is true in marketing. But what I loved about like what Codie was bringing up is the advantages that we have. So if you're trying to grow and you're like, I don't know who to market to, a good refresher always is like, who is already close to you? Because a lot of times it's just, I don't know why we do this as business owners and people too. We jump over the money in front of us to reach for whatever, the money we set our eyes on to. And so when I did a challenge recently, and my entire strategy was just relational proximity. Actually, I love this. I'm seeing Tyler, I'm seeing you post more in this space and just take advantage of like, I have a network. There are people right next to me, and all I got to do is be a little bit better at connecting and encouraging and nurturing.
And that was my takeaway from when you did that challenge is I've been trying to go after strangers when I already have people that I could probably help with the services that we offer currently. Like, this is just being a good friend. Really, you know what I mean?
It really is. It's surprisingly counterintuitive though. But think of that. Like, so this was the like, I didn't want to steal Codie's thunder, but it was like literally any business that you regularly Venmo, there's assuming you have marketing know-how, you've got marketing skills. If there's a business that you regularly Venmo, there's a high chance that they would sell a portion of their business to you for little or no cost because of the skills that you bring to the table. And it, to be fair, I was listening to the presentation. I was like, this would be a distraction for me. There's no point. I don't need to like have a stake in all these.
The concept is the same. It doesn't mean that you should be buying a business right now, but the idea, the concept is still there.
The concept is true. Yeah. The practical takeaway is not go and buy 10 different businesses. However, for your own business, assuming you've got your own business, the truth of it is proximity is an unfair advantage. So like if people are starting out and they're wondering like, who do I go after? If they don't have any kind of like relational strength there, I say just go geographical. And that's why like a lot of agencies, like this local agency model works, because if I have to choose between it's all strangers on the internet, but one stranger on the internet I can meet face to face at a Starbucks, and the other, like I have no chance of doing that. Like I just give an unfair elevated stance to the people who are close to me. It's the same reason why my wife would go to the farmer's market and we pay absurdly higher prices for eggs that are eggs that are laid in the same city versus eggs that are laid 100 miles away, right?
Your relationships are fresher if they're close.
They're fresher. That's exactly right. We just assume this freshness based on that proximity.
But there's human psychology in proximity bias, right? And both directions. We have two sides of it. You mentioned one already, which is we have a tendency to discount the things that are already available to us, right? And so we don't see the opportunities in front of us. Then conversely, like we have a tendency to assume that the things around us have greater value. So like you said, if you're comparing two businesses, one is near you and one is not, and everything else looks equal, they're going to have a value just in that proximity. And that's just how we're wired as humans. It's in our subconscious, but it's predictable. And it's things that we have been proven time and time again.
If you're thinking about campaigns, let's go another degree, is like, what could I do in sort of my marketing nurture and campaign there? Think of it instead of like, I need to get them to want to buy my product. Think of it instead of like, I want them to feel close to me. I want them to feel close to me. And that could be to your brand, to your, if it's a personal brand or the business brand or whatever it is the more that your prospects or strangers or your audience feel close to you, the higher value they're going to apply on whatever you provide. It's so crazy. But like truly, if I had to compare A/B test the eggs from the farmer's market versus the eggs in Ralph's, like I don't think there's a ton of difference between those eggs. But the price difference is dramatically different.
My dad grew up on a chicken ranch. He would disagree with you, but that's okay. The example is still good.
Yeah, there's a dramatic difference.
If you've had farm fresh eggs versus like the eggs that have been on the shelf a while, it's not just location, it's time duration, right? That's a secondary thing. But I think that's part of it. I love that idea of how do you make sure people are still feeling close, right? We tend to look, and I was talking about networking recently, and we tend to sometimes look at a network as something we should be taking from. But really, like a relationship, you should be giving before you ask, right? And so I like to, if someone's like looking and getting started, trying to become more visible, like start by giving, right? Just start by pouring into the relationship, keeping the connections in your network strong, right? Like it's just being a good human, right? It feels better, at least to me.
No, 100%. And that's really what it's all about. So if I'm, wrapping up this idea of proximity, hopefully it gives a couple of just like a different thought process there of one, is there an asset that you already have, either people that you're close to or geographically, should you start competing based on an unfair advantage you already have? You're just close to them. And then secondly, when you're thinking about like, how do I communicate or what is like progress in my marketing? How do I get better at marketing? How do I see the growth of my marketing for the people that I'm reaching? Am I effectively making them feel close to me? If you can't change it geographically, you can do it relationally. How can you make your messaging, make your content focus not at actually turning them into a buyer, but just on making them feel close and connected?
I like that a lot. Really good stuff. It's funny when they talk about know, like, and trust. they don't say no buy and trust, right? It's like there's a lot of relationship that goes in before any kind of a transaction. So I think that's great, and hope everyone is capturing more here of Marketing with Matt. Make sure to share this podcast with a entrepreneur or business owner who's looking to get more margin in their life.